There may be no doubt that Iran is apparently giving the United States, US a tougher time at the Strait of Hormuz, holding strong that none of its enemies and their allies will sail their ship through the Strait of Hormuz, an action that has since made the US President Donald Trump to make contradictory statements after the US Army obviously failed in its intimidating military campaign and destruction of the Iran naval base, airport control tower, helicopter hangars, naval mine storage, missile bunkers and anti-aircraft and ballistic missiles defense system, with a threat to destroy the oil lifeline of Iran at the Karg Island if Iran continued to block ships from sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. But yet, as at the time of filing in this report today, Iran remains deviant to US threat, with close watchers saying, Iran may not fight a traditional normal naval war with the US Marines who are currently on a high-speed traveling from their base in Japan to the Strait of Hormuz, of which, over 2,500 of the US Marines and sailors have been redeployed and apparently drawn from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, an elite rapid response force, and the Marines are traveling aboard an amphibious-ready group, ARG led by the assault ship USS Tripoli, LHA-7, an assault ship that can function as a lightning carrier, carrying F-35B stealth fighters and MV-22 Osprey transport aircraft, and the assigned Marines are expected to arrive the Strait of Hormuz in a week or less than 2 weeks' time. But, currently, close watchers said, Iran is using deviant tactics like GPS jamming, swarming drones, and underwater mines to keep the US Navy off balance, an action that may be the reason the US President Donald Trump initially called on the international communities to help form an international naval coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but some European countries like Germany, United Kingdom, France, Greece, Italy, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO refused, with some heads of the European countries saying, "The war is not our war. Germany will not participate in any military activity in the Strait. Any plan to reopen the Strait won't be a NATO mission, and that the UK will not be drawn into a wider war. No sending France warships to the region until the security situation stabilizes. Italy's current naval missions would not be extended to the Strait. No Greece military engagement in the waterway." Following this, President Donald Trump, in a nationwide media chat on Monday, said, "US don't need them. We don't need anybody. We are the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them, but, it is interesting, in some cases, not because we need them, because I want to find out how they react. We have been protecting these countries for years with NATO, because NATO is us. You can ask Putin, Russia President Vladimir Putin. Putin fears us. He doesn't fear them. He has no fear of Europe whatsoever." Meanwhile, Iran's stronghold on the Strait of Hormuz has made energy prices to go higher. Brent crude has surged to over $105 per barrel, a 40% increase since the start of the war on February 28, 2026. QatarEnergy has declared force majeure on LNG shipments after attacks on its facilities, removing 20% of the global LNG supply from the market overnight. Most shipping, according to local media, has diverted to the Cape of Good Hope, adding 10 to 14 days to journey times and significantly increasing freight costs, with Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry confirming that the port of Cape Town in South Africa recorded a 112% increase in diverted vessels by mid-March 2026. This, the US military, CENTCOM during the preceding week issued a public announcement, asking civilians to leave ports around the Strait of Hormuz, saying, "The Iranian regime is using civilian ports along the Strait of Hormuz to conduct military operations that threaten international shipping." As of today, March 17, 2026, multiple reports indicated that the Strait of Hormuz is in a state of de facto closure and extreme military tension. Commercial traffic has collapsed from a pre-war average of 138 vessels per day to just 3 vessels per day as of March 16, according to local observers. Major carriers like Maersk, MSC, and Hapag-Lloyd are said to have suspended all transits. Iran has officially stated the strait is open, but effectively barred to the US, Israel, and their allies. Some non-Western vessels, such as Indian and Pakistani tankers, have been granted rare exceptions to pass, often by hugging the Iranian coastline or broadcasting China crew on their transponders to signal neutrality. It was gathered that more than 3,200 ships are currently trapped or waiting west of the strait as companies assess the risk of missile and drone attacks. Mariner Traffic on March 4, 2026 had tweeted that tanker traffic through Strait of Hormuz down by 90%. Analysis of vessel activity indicates tanker transits are now around 90% lower than last week. Matt Wright, principal freight analyst at Kepler, explains, unlike several other vessel segments where movements have largely ceased, some tankers are still traveling east and west through the strait, with a number of voyages occurring under Automatic Identification System (AIS) blackouts. During the preceding week, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, vowed to keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping channel, in a statement read by a presenter on state TV. On March 14, 2026, President Trump urged allies, including the UK, China, France, Japan, and South Korea, to send warships to the region to help reopen the strait and secure global energy routes, but the European countries refused, and the US president said the United States does not need them. He was only wanting to see their reactions by asking for international naval coalition help. Mariner Traffic on Monday reported that a first non-Iranian cargo transits Strait of Hormuz with ash on. Accordingly, the Mariner Traffic stated that the Aframax tanker Karachi, carrying Abu Dhabi's Das crude, has become the first non-Iranian cargo to transit the choke point while broadcasting its ash signal, suggesting that select shipments may be receiving negotiated safe passage. According to Mariner Traffic data, the 237-meter crude oil tanker entered the Iranian exclusive economic zone on the 15th of March at 11:33 Coordinated Universal Time and crossed the Strait of Hormuz at 14:43 Coordinated Universal Time. The vessel is currently sailing in the Gulf of Oman at around 9.6 knots, having successfully passed through the strait with ash active. The transit follows weeks of significantly reduced traffic through the strategic waterway, with more than 20 long-range tankers reported to have exited the Gulf. In numbers of efforts to make the Strait of Hormuz open, President Donald Trump during the preceding week stated via his Truth social media that, moments ago, at my direction, the United States Central Command executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East, and totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Karg Island. Our weapons are the most powerful and sophisticated that the world has ever known, but, for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran, or anyone else, do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. During my first term, and currently, I rebuilt our military into the most lethal, powerful, and effective force, by far, anywhere in the world. Iran has no ability to defend anything that we want to attack. There is nothing they can do about it. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, nor will it have the ability to threaten the United States of America, the Middle East, or, for that matter, the world. Iran's military, and all others involved with this terrorist regime, would be wise to lay down their arms, and save what's left of their country, which isn't much. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Iran has continued to retaliate U.S. attacks on its soil, and Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters has also urged residents in the United Arab Emirates to evacuate areas located near ports, docks and facilities hosting the United States military presence. The advisory, issued by the Iranian Military Command, warned that civilians living around strategic maritime and military locations should move away from such areas as tensions continue to rise in the region, according to Al Jazeera news media. Multiple reports indicated that more cargo ships have been attacked in the Gulf, apparently by Iran. 2 tankers were hit near Iraq, while a container ship was struck near the UAE. Iranian state media says Iranian forces were behind at least one strike. U.S. CENTCOM in a press release issued on March 11, 2026 with the title, "Civilians Warned to Avoid Ports Used by Iranian Forces," stated that U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, is issuing a warning to civilians that the Iranian regime is using civilian ports along the Strait of Hormuz to conduct military operations that threaten international shipping. This dangerous action risks the lives of innocent people. Civilian ports used for military purposes lose protected status and become legitimate military targets under international law. CENTCOM urges civilians in Iran to immediately avoid all port facilities where Iranian naval forces are operating. Iranian dockworkers, administrative personnel, and commercial vessel crews should avoid Iranian naval vessels and military equipment. Iranian naval forces have positioned military vessels and equipment within civilian ports serving commercial maritime traffic. Although the U.S. military also cannot guarantee civilian safety in or near facilities used by the Iranian regime for military purposes, American forces will continue taking every feasible precaution to minimize harm to civilians.
We don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them. But it's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. Because I've been saying for years that if we ever did need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there. I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do it. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally. And we spend a lot of money on, NATO and all of these things to protect you. I mean, we're protecting them. We're working with them on Ukraine. Ukraine's thousands of miles away, separated by a vast ocean. We don't have to do that, but we did it. Well, Biden did it. I mean, I have to be honest with you. Biden got taken to the cleaners. But we worked with them in Ukraine. We don't need to work with them in Ukraine. And then they tell us that we have a mine ship around, and they don't want to do it. I think it's terrible. No, I was very surprised. I told him, we requested 2 aircraft carriers, which they had, and he didn't really want to do it. And then right after the war essentially ended, meaning they were obliterated, he said, I would like to send the aircraft carriers. I said, I don't need them after the war has ended and won. I need it before the war. So I was very upset I was not happy with the UK. I think they'll be involved, yeah, maybe. But they should be involved enthusiastically. We've been protecting these countries for years with NATO, because NATO is us. You can ask Putin. Putin fears us. He doesn't fear. He has no fear of Europe whatsoever.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
There may be no doubt that the year 2026 may not be a year of good record for some men and women of the armed forces of Nigeria. AFN, as multiple reports and official statements have confirmed that some numbers of Nigeria soldiers have been killed by Islamic State of West Africa Province, ISWAP, since the beginning of this year. Thus, the multiple reports suggest more than 180 Nigeria soldiers may have been killed in just 73 days into this new year 2026, which further indicated that an average of 2 to 3 soldiers are being killed daily in Nigeria by the ISWAP terrorists, who appeared to have increased the daily offensive attacks on Nigeria soldiers since the US-Israel joint war against Iran began on February 28, 2026. Although some close watchers accused the Nigeria military of always downplaying or reporting a very lower numbers of troops casualties, but the Nigeria Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, stated and confirmed during the week after security chiefs held a meeting with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja that a lot of Nigeria soldiers has been lost. But he insisted that, contrary to some reports by the media, the terrorists and bandits are taking more casualties, specifically stating, "Their commanders are being killed every day. We are sure of victory. and some reports also suggest that the ISWAP terrorists are increasingly using armed drones for asymmetric warfare and high-end tech like night vision in recent attacks on military bases in Nigeria, with some foreigners joining the Nigeria ISWAP fighters to launch a Ramadan campaign that saw ISWAP overrunning some military bases in Konduga, Mainik, Jacana, and Marte areas of Borno State, with local media reports stating approximately 40 soldiers were killed, while ISWAP in a press release claimed to have killed 16 in the initial assault and another 20 in a subsequent suicide bombing. On March 4, 2026, at least 14 soldiers were reportedly killed during attacks on military bases in Ngosh and other parts of Borno State between February 15 and 18, 2026. Multiple reports confirmed 8 soldiers were killed and 23 injured at a base in Crosskawa in the Kakawa local government area of Borno State. Another 6 soldiers were reportedly killed in Bu local government area. Earlier in January 2026, at least 20 soldiers were killed in an attack on a remote base in Malam Fatori, and 8 others were killed in a separate ambush earlier in the month. This former Nigeria presidential candidate in the last concluded general elections in the West Africa country, Peter Obi, in a worded statement during the week, said, "Our nation is clearly under siege, and the scale of insecurity is becoming unbearable, spreading widely all over the country." This week alone in Borno State's Ngosh community, terrorists overpowered soldiers, killing them and several citizens, while abducting more than 100 women and children, yet our leaders are silent. Nigerian Army in press release signed and made available on March 14, 2026 by Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the Media Information Officer of Joint Task Force in the Northeast, code-named Operation Haddon Kai, stated that the ISWAP terrorists even made an attempt to kill some Nigeria soldiers today at Bitter community in Gwoza local government area of Borno State, but they were resisted. According to the Army press release, troops of the Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Haddon Kai, OPHK, have once again demonstrated another superior combat readiness and tactical dominance by successfully thwarted a terrorist infiltration attempt at Bitter in Sector 1. The failed attack occurred when ISWAP terrorists, in a desperate bid to regain the initiative after recent battlefield setbacks, attempted to infiltrate the troops' location. Unknown to the terrorists, vigilant OPHK troops had anticipated the move and deliberately prepared a decisive offensive defensive battle plan. As the terrorists advanced towards the position, the troops launched coordinated spoiling actions that effectively disrupted the assault formation while simultaneously maneuvering to cut off the terrorists' withdrawal routes. The attackers were consequently met with overwhelming resistance and superior firepower, forcing them into a chaotic withdrawal while suffering significant losses. This latest defeat represents the third major blow inflicted on the terrorists within the last 24 hours, following their failed attacks at Banki and Azir Bridge. These successive setbacks further highlight the continued operational pressure being mounted by the troops of Operation Haddon Kai across the theater, which has severely constrained the terrorists' freedom of action and denied them any opportunity to exploit propaganda narratives. Troops remain firmly in control of all locations and continue to dominate the operational environment with high morale, superior tactical coordination and sustained offensive action. The military high command commended the troops for the continuous gallantry and resilience, urging them to sustain the operational tempo. Peter Obi, in the worded statement titled, "Politics in Front as Insecurity Spreads," said, "Our nation is clearly under siege, and the scale of insecurity is becoming unbearable, spreading widely all over the country." This week alone in Borno State's Ngosh community, terrorists overpowered soldiers, killing them and several citizens, while abducting more than 100 women and children, yet our leaders are silent. The sacrifice of our brave and dedicated soldiers is passed in silence. I look forward to the day when our fallen soldiers are given the dignified burials they deserve, with their bodies received and honored by the nation's leaders and political authorities. From Nasarawa, Kogi and Benue, residents are screaming that terrorists now flock to their farms and forests, disrupting economic activities, forcing entire villages to flee in fear. In Nasarawa's Kadako area alone, 14,318 civilians are now registered as internally displaced persons, IDPs. In Oyo State, travelers were abducted in the dead of night along the Kishi-Igbeti Road, their whereabouts still unknown. In Ondo State, criminals shot at, abducted and wounded innocent citizens. And in Kebbi State, terrorists are on a rampage, killing officers and citizens, making it the third deadly attack this month. The wave of terror has now brazenly crept into our nation's capital. The attack in Kubwa, Abuja, just this week, about 19 citizens were abducted from their homes, including women and children. This is yet another grim reminder that insecurity is no longer distant but now a norm. These are national tragedies happening simultaneously all over our country, claiming the lives of civilians and security operatives alike. The primary responsibility of any government is to secure the lives and property of its citizens. Yet, the response from the government in power to all the incidents has been dead silence, as if Nigerian lives no longer matter. The ruling class are instead devastatingly more preoccupied with how to snatch, grab, and run away with the next election. These are not just news items. Nigerians deserve commitment and leadership that puts their safety and welfare first. It is time to restore security, dignity, and hope to every corner of this nation. A new Nigeria is possible. Punch newspaper during the week also reported that troops of Operation Hadden-Kai have reoccupied a military base, previously attacked and occupied by terrorists in Ngosh, Gwoza local government area of Borno State. Online Punch on March 5 had reported that the terrorists burned down the base, dispersed soldiers, and killed an undetermined number of civilians before abducting over 300 residents. However, in a statement released on Thursday, the Media Information Officer, Northeast Joint Task Force Operation Hadden-Kai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, said troops thwarted the attack and neutralized many insurgents. The statement, which copy is in possession of Arewa Punch, read in parts: troops of the Nigerian Army under the Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadden-Kai have successfully thwarted a terrorist attack on a military location in Ngosh, Gwoza local government area of Borno State, restoring control of the position after a swift counter-offensive. The terrorists had earlier attacked the location occupied by troops of OPHK on the 3rd of March 2026. However, reinforcement teams drawn from Forward Operating Base Pulka and 151 Battalion were immediately mobilized to reinforce the position. The statement added that during the reinforcement operation, the leading mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle encountered an improvised explosive device, which damaged 2 tires. Undeterred, troops continued the advance to the location, it explained. The Army colonel further disclosed that a special reinforcement team led by the Commander 26 Task Force Brigade, Gwoza, under Sector 1 OPHK, Brigadier General Nasruddin Abdullahi, subsequently arrived at the scene, coordinated a counterattack and successfully thwarted terrorists, forcing them to withdraw from the area. During the pursuit and exchange of fire, Sani said the troops recovered 3 AK-47 rifles and a general-purpose machine gun barrel from the fleeing terrorists. Equally, the air component of OPHK rendered heavy air support to the operation and neutralized scores of the terrorists, he added. Sani stressed that following the successful reoccupation of the location and subsequent exploitation of the area, Brigadier General Abdullahi addressed the troops, commending the gallantry and resilience while urging them to sustain aggressive operations in the area to further degrade terrorist elements operating within the general area. Troops of OPHK remain resolute in the determination to deny terrorists freedom of action and will continue to conduct aggressive operations to ensure lasting peace, security and economic stability across the Northeast, the Army spokesperson added. Troops' morale remains high, and operations are ongoing. The military high command hailed the troops for the gallantry and resilience while urging them to sustain the operational tempo, he pointed out. Punch recently reported that the Media Information Officer, Northeast Joint Task Force Operation Hadden-Kai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, said troops neutralized several terrorists while responding to multiple coordinated attacks across the state recently. The terrorists, according to him, attacked the military locations in Delwa, Gonari, Kakawa, and Mainik. The attacks, which occurred during the night of Sunday, 8, and Monday, 9, of March 2026, were mounted simultaneously from several directions in an apparent attempt by the terrorists to overwhelm troops' positions. According to him, the gallant troops, undeterred by the intensity of the assaults and the heavy firepower employed by the terrorists, were firm and responded with exceptional determination. Fighting across multiple fronts, the troops effectively coordinated the defensive actions while reinforcements and the air component of Operation Haddon Kai provided timely and decisive support during the engagements. The terrorists were consequently met with overwhelming resistance and were forced into withdrawal after suffering significant casualties from several terrorist bodies left behind, he disclosed further.
The meeting actually is just for us to review the events. We came in here for the services to brief Mr. President on the current situation on ground. You know that there have been a series of attacks and the security forces have actually rose to the occasion. We came here to brief him for him to have a better understanding of what's going on. We know sometimes the interpretation, especially through the media, has not been too direct. We feel we should put the record straight, which we have done, and we're glad that Mr. President has continued to support the armed forces and other security agencies in the fight against insurgency. And our appeal to Nigerians is not to get tired, not to be discouraged, because sometimes when you hear those news, you think it is just what is happening, but it is not. It's far from that. The terrorists, the bandits are taking more casualties. Their commanders are being killed. We have lost a number of very, very courageous officers and men. Highly regrettable, but we want to assure Nigerians is a commitment we are putting on ground to ensure that Nigeria is safe and secured. New things, the President has promised more equipment for us to be able to protect the war, and we are sure of victory.
Just interestingly, you said that Nigerians should not lose hope. About the case of insecurity these days is looking like the more you look, the less you see. A lot of cases of insecurity still happening despite the efforts you're putting in. Where do you think the gap lies?
Well, like I said, it's war, and you know war comes in and out, and because again it's normal it's usual with the terrorists during the Ramadan period. For them, they feel when they die they are going to heaven, so they are ready to commit any offense or to get killed because they feel they have reward to do. But like I said, we have adjusted our strategies. You can see in the past few days we've taken over those locations, we've killed their commanders, we've taken over their assets, we'll continue to do more. And I assure you, Mr. President has approved so many things that are coming on our line, and we're working together as a team. You can see all members of the security forces are here to assure Nigerians and to assure Mr. President that we're on track and will succeed.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the state of Israel has a lot of organized plans of what yet to be done in Iran, specifically saying, regarding what we will do next in Iran, we have an organized plan with many surprises to destabilize the regime and enable change. We have many more targets, and I will not detail them here. Benjamin Netanyahu stated this on Saturday, a day before Mojtaba Khamenei was officially and publicly announced as the Iran's new supreme leader in Tehran's Vanik Square on Sunday, with residents in Middle East reporting with videos that Iran unleashed some numbers of massive waves of Fatah 2 hypersonic glide missiles straight at Israel shortly after the announcement of the Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, many believed to be much more aggressive than his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The announcement of the new supreme leader was made known after days. The US President, Donald Trump, stated that the US will have a complete control of Iran and determine its leadership, which in one of the occasions, President Donald Trump stated verbatim that, well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. We had some in mind from that group that is dead. Now we have another group. They may be dead also based on reports. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, in a nationwide message to the people of Israel on Saturday as made available by the Office of the Prime Minister, said countries can now see the hypocrisy of the United Nations, UN, following the US-Israel joint war against Iran, saying, the war is changing the face of the Middle East, and in his words, Benjamin Netanyahu said. At the same time, we brought all of our hostages home, struck the centers of terrorism in Judea and Samaria, climbed to the peak of Mount Hermon, and created buffer zones in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. As I promised you 2 days after October 7th, we are changing the face of the Middle East. But we didn't just change the Middle East. First and foremost, we changed ourselves, because after the great disaster of October 7th, I decided to lead a polar shift. Powerful actions one after another, proactive and surprising actions, actions that dramatically change the balance of power between us and our enemies. The countries around us see the hypocrisy of the UN, which condemned us without reason in our just war against Iran's murderous proxies in Gaza. Yet that same UN did nothing in the face of the mass slaughter in Iran. These countries, which were attacked by Iran, see the weakness and feebleness of leaders in the West who simply abandoned them, while Khamenei and his murderers slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranian citizens. Where was the UN? Where were many countries in the West? And where was the international media that constantly condemns us with fake news? They were nowhere. They simply vanished. Together we rose from the terrible massacre of October 7th. Together we repelled our enemies step by step in the war of redemption, and we struck them hip and thigh. In Gaza, Sinwar and his murderers. In Lebanon, Nasrallah and his terrorists. In Syria, we brought about the fall of the bloody regime. Iran on Sunday officially named and announced Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader following the killing of his father Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in US-Israeli strikes on February 28. The state-run media announced early Monday, according to Iran local time that aligns with the Iran Standard Time, IRST, which was still on Sunday in accordance with the Greenwich Mean Time, GMT. According to CNN, Mojtaba Khamenei was selected by Iran's Assembly of Experts, an 88-member body of elected senior clerics tasked with choosing the supreme leader. The Assembly has chosen a new leader only once, before since the Islamic Republic was established in 1979. It was when Ali Khamenei was hastily selected following the death of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini more than 3 decades ago. US President Donald Trump said Thursday he must be involved in the appointment of Iran's next leader and that the choice of Khamenei's son was unacceptable to him. Mojtaba, 56, is Khamenei's second son and is known to wield significant influence behind the scenes and has strong links with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, the most powerful military body in the country, as well as its Basi volunteer paramilitary force. That aside, details of the statement made by the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu in the nationwide address reads verbatim as follows: "My brothers and sisters, citizens of Israel. We are in a fateful campaign for our very existence. A week has passed since the start of Operation Roaring Lion and I want to salute our heroic pilots, the ground crews that are working around the clock, and our courageous fighters in Lebanon and on all fronts. I wish to express my deepest appreciation to you, the citizens of Israel, for your steadfastness, for the way you are conducting yourselves in this emergency, understanding the gravity of the hour and following home front command instructions which truly save lives. In the secure rooms and protected spaces, you are demonstrating a powerful spirit. You tell me, the government, and our heroic soldiers and commanders, continue until the end, until victory. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your backing, and I inform you, we are continuing with full force. Wars are won with initiative and stratagems, but the first foundation of success is determination. I am not just talking about the determination of leaders, I am talking about the determination of the people. I am talking about the determination that you, the citizens of Israel, have shown until today and the determination that will yet be required of us together. Together we rose from the terrible massacre of October 7th. Together we repelled our enemies step by step in the war of redemption, and we struck them hip and thigh. In Gaza, Sinwar and his murderers. In Lebanon, Nasrallah and his terrorists. In Syria, we brought about the fall of the bloody regime. And in Iran we struck the murderous regime of the Ayatollahs in Operation Rising Lion, and now, we are doing so with even greater vigor in Operation Roaring Lion. At the same time, we brought all of our hostages home, struck the centers of terrorism in Judea and Samaria, climbed to the peak of Mount Hermon, and created buffer zones in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. As I promised you 2 days after October 7th, we are changing the face of the Middle East. But we didn't just change the Middle East. First and foremost, we changed ourselves. Because after the great disaster of October 7th, I decided to lead a polar shift. Powerful actions one after another, proactive and surprising actions, actions that dramatically changed the balance of power between us and our enemies. Through these methods, we turned Israel into a regional power that deters and defeats its enemies. All of this requires initiative, daring, and risk-taking. In the General Staff Reconnaissance Unit in which I served as a fighter and commander, a large poster hung in the dining hall with 2 words, only 2 words, "Who dares wins." If you do not dare, if you are constantly afraid of failure, you will lose. But if you do dare, if you take calculated risks, knocking the enemy off balance, you break his spirit. Now I will describe to you why we embarked on Operation Roaring Lion, what we have done so far, and what we will do as the campaign continues. Standing before us is an extremist, evil regime that for 47 years has called for death to Israel, death to America, and which plots to destroy us with atomic bombs and tens of thousands of ballistic missiles. President Trump understood the magnitude of the danger to the US and the entire world long ago. I will tell you that when I met him in Florida, a few months before he was elected to his 2nd term, the first thing he said to me was, "Bibi, we must at all costs prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons." I would like to thank my friend, President Trump, for the historic leadership he is demonstrating, for the brave friendship between us, and for the alliance, which is stronger than ever, between the US and Israel that we are both leading. In Operation Rising Lion, we joined forces to remove the immediate danger from Israel and the US. But the tyrant from Tehran, Khamenei, did not heed President Trump's warnings, nor did he heed mine. He ordered the restoration of Iran's nuclear and ballistic capabilities, and even buried them deep, deep underground, beneath high mountains, so that they would be completely immune to any strike. There is no doubt that after achieving this underground immunity, the Ayatollah's regime would have used these terrible tools to destroy us, Israel, and threaten the US, Europe, the countries of the region, and the entire world with nuclear weapons. After all, this is exactly what this terrorist regime is doing now, even without weapons of mass destruction. Imagine what it would do if it had nuclear weapons. Based on this foresight, we set out together, the US and Israel, on an action that would thwart these terrible threats, an action that would create the conditions to allow the Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. There was an additional danger here. There was the danger that Iran would preempt us, that Iran would strike first at American targets in the region as well as at Israel. For all these reasons, we acted at the appointed time. As for what we have done so far, in the first week of the war, we eliminated the tyrant Khamenei, neutralized dozens of senior Revolutionary Guard officials and hundreds of terrorist operatives, destroyed government facilities, nuclear infrastructure, headquarters and military bases, weapon factories, missile and drone warehouses, and hundreds of ballistic missile launchers, which reduces the threat to the state of Israel. Through our daring pilots and those of the US, we achieved almost total control of Iranian skies. With each passing day, we are peeling away more and more of the Iranian regime's capabilities. We are doing the same in Lebanon, with crushing attacks on Hezbollah terrorists, Iran's puppets. I say again to the Lebanese government, it is your responsibility to enforce the ceasefire agreement and it is your responsibility to disarm Hezbollah. If you do not do so, Hezbollah's aggression will bring catastrophic consequences upon Lebanon. It is time for you, too, to take your destiny into your hands. We will, in any case, do everything necessary to protect our communities and our citizens. Regarding what we will do next in Iran, we have an organized plan with many surprises to destabilize the regime and enable change. We have many more targets, and I will not detail them here. But to the Revolutionary Guard operatives, those who tyrannize the Iranian people in the streets, I say only this: you, too, are in the crosshairs. Whoever lays down his weapon, no harm will come to him. He who does not will pay the price. And to the Iranian people I say, I have been speaking to you and for you for decades. The moment of truth is approaching, for we do not seek to divide Iran. We seek to liberate Iran and live in peace with it. But at the end of the day, liberation from the yoke of tyranny, this liberation will depend on you, the brave and long-suffering Iranian people. I believe that if you stand up at the moment of truth, the day will not be far off when Israel and Iran return to being brave friends. Whoever sees the joint waving of flags in Western capitals, the Iranian, Lion and Sun, flag and the Israeli, Star of David, flag, whoever sees the dancing and warm embraces between exiled Iranians and Jews, whoever sees all this is deeply moved. This gives immense hope for the future. Our success will bring not only the removal of a nuclear threat from the entire world, and not only peace between Israel and Iran. It will also bring a dramatic expansion of the circle of peace around us. Today everyone understands that the Ayatollah's regime endangers the entire world. In recent days, Iran has attacked 12 countries around it. We stand by them. All these countries see the immense power of Israel, our willingness to fight the tyrants in Tehran, the heroism of the army and the heroism of the people, and our vast military and technological capabilities. Many countries are turning to us now for cooperation. And why are they doing so? Why are they turning to us specifically now? Because we are strong, because we are right, because we are fighting. The countries around us see the hypocrisy of the UN, which condemned us without reason in our just war against Iran's murderous proxies in Gaza. Yet that same UN did nothing in the face of the mass slaughter in Iran. These countries, which were attacked by Iran, see the weakness and feebleness of leaders in the West who simply abandoned them. While Khamenei and his murderers slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranian citizens, where was the UN? Where were many countries in the West? And where was the international media that constantly condemns us with fake news? They were nowhere. They simply vanished. Many countries see today exactly who can be trusted. Israel serves as a beacon of strength and hope. Thanks to this strength, we will be able to expand the circle of security, peace, and prosperity in the future on a scale we have never known. Citizens of Israel, at this moment we are still in the midst of a difficult campaign. We will not cease to struggle against the tyrants in Iran. We will strike them without mercy. Operation Roaring Lion will continue with uncompromising momentum. Together we will continue to stand firm. Together we will roar like a lion, and with God's help, together we will ensure the eternity of Israel.
ISWAP Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way. ISWAP Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.